So I'm reviewing FarSky. First, we should talk about something. I'm going to start my review with something I usually don't talk about, which is a bit of history. 6 years ago, Subnautica came out 1.0 on Steam by Unknown Worlds Entertainment. They started the early access 10 years ago. 6 months prior to that, a French guy, released a game in alpha on this page called FarSky. And this is a game I'm reviewing today. I wanted to mention that bit of history first before reviewing the game for a few reasons. First, you cannot buy FarSky anymore on Steam. You can still find FarSky for free, apparently, on itch.io. So if you're interested, check it out. And I'm reviewing this game today because I've finished FarSky. The problem is the guy who did FarSky had a long article on his personal opinion about everything that happened. If you're interested, it's on Steam. It's been published a couple of years ago. It's interesting. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to do politics. I'm not here to blame someone or accuse someone or whatever. I love Subnautica and I quite enjoyed FarSky, and I think it's important to mention. But let's talk about the game right now. FarSky was published for free at first more than 10 years ago, and it's basically a survival crafting thing underwater. Let's talk about the video first, everything that is graphics, etc. It's cool. It's still fine looking for a game that is now more than 10 years old. If you look at it, it looks fine. It uses Java, so you will need to download Java on your computer. There's obviously some things that clash in terms of style. If you look at the messages here, the font that they use, if you look at the way you see your life here, the font there, compared to the actual environment, it doesn't go well together. And I believe this is because it's mostly a low-budget game. It's been done by one guy. I think he hired at some stage another guy to help him for some stuff, but it's mostly a one-man project. So if you look at it, it looks like an old indie game, but not too bad. I was still able to play it the whole day, right? And I wouldn't do that for a game that is really ugly looking. If you look here at the menu, it doesn't go well with the 3D environment. This looks more like almost like a board game. It looks a bit cheap. So video-wise, graphics-wise, it's fine. It's fine. It oscillates between a 6 out of 10 and a 7 out of 10, I would say. It's okay. Performance-wise, there's no issue whatsoever. The game looks fine and the game plays fine. I had no bug. It's really decent for one-man thing. Audio-wise, let's talk about the audio. I'm not going to talk too long about this game because it's a tiny game that you can't buy anymore anyway, so I don't think there's any point. Audio-wise, I was quite surprised to see that the music was really fine. I actually added a few of the tracks from the soundtrack into my playlist here on the stream because I thought the audio was fine. Good music. Environment is fine, you know, the typical underwater sound and creepiness is really well done. Very reminiscent of what would come next in Subnautica. Audio-wise, yeah, pretty cool. I don't think there was any voiceover. It's mostly a few dialogues with subtitles and some sound effects, some music, very ambient, and I think it's pretty decent. You can find it on YouTube. It's a good soundtrack. Gameplay-wise, that's very typical of your sandbox building, crafting, survival game. You can see me here in the base. The base building is actually pretty good for a game that is old now. It works well. It works really well. You know, it works with not blocks like in Minecraft, but almost, you know, you use cells, everything works in on the grid, and it's pretty fine. The inventory and the HUD, that system was mesh, you know, it's like a 6 out of 10. It's okay. It's not fascinating, it's not great, but it works. The moving in the water is also pretty decent for a game that is old and made by one guy. It could have been very clunky and very annoying. It works well. I was pretty surprised to see that. Difficulty, it's totally fine. The game is absolutely not hard, though you are kind of confused as to what you're supposed to do. There's a few information, but the rest you have to find out by yourself. You can see me here, you find some chest and there's stuff in it, but you don't know what they're for, so you're a bit left out there to understand what you're supposed to do, which is fine, right? Some people like that, and I don't like when there's too many tutorials, but I was a bit confused, but it was still fine. Eventually you find out, it's not too obscure. So gameplay wise, it's okay, decent, like 7 out of 10. And now content wise is probably the most interesting part of the game. Basically it's that sci-fi theme. You fall on this planet in the water and you're stranded and you communicate a bit with someone. There's that amount of story in the game, a bit of dialogues, a bit of 2 characters talking, and that represents like maybe 2% in the game. That's all. There's nothing don't expect a big story. I was expecting a big story, or at least a bigger story than what I got, and I was disappointed. There's not much into it, truthfully. But the world, the immersion, the content of the game is you are underwater, there are creatures all around, mostly realistic creatures, right? Fish, sharks, dolphins, that kind of thing. It's very realistic in a way. It's not very sci-fi-ish. And you forage stuff, come back to your base, build stuff. If you've played Subnautica, you know what it's about. It's exactly the same idea. And you are trying to gather some parts for your submarine to escape. That's it, that's just the content there is. And now we reach the last part, which is other, where I put a bit everything in it, such as the length, the replayability, the price and all that. That's probably the biggest flow of the game. I believe you could finish this game in half an hour. Once I understood everything, it took me maybe 2 hours. It's a very short game. It almost feels like not a prototype, but a concept, a game jam game that would have been interesting for everybody, and so the guy decided to expand a bit and make a little game out of it. That's about it. I was expecting, you see, to go deeper and deeper and find out stuff, find out a story with some plot building up, some creatures underwater, some, I don't know, something a bit like in Subnautica. I guess I was expecting something, but there's nothing. That's the big disappointment. You finish the game very quickly and that's it. It's mostly a prototype, a demo of an engine, of an idea, a concept. And I think that's how I'll finish this with not a disclaimer per se, but I understand why the developer of FarSky was pissed off and he stopped making games altogether, which is very sad. He never complained that he got his ID stolen or whatever. He didn't yell, he didn't sue Unknown World, you know, he didn't attack them or whatever. He just said, I'm sad because I had this idea, I made this game, people would give the money they want to me purchasing with their email, and in emails list I saw the CEO of what would become the Subnautica thing. He knew that they got his game, they got his idea, and they made a game out of it. And all he wanted was to be credited, to say inspired by whatever. I'm sure the guy would have been happy if they hired him. He said that he tried contacting them and they never answered. That's why he got pissed off, and I think it's a very sad story. Today, is it interesting to play this game? I would say as a gamer, no. I don't think you should play FarSky. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's worth your time. Now, if you are a developer or if you are a video game historian, universitarian, anybody who is interested in all the history about video games and all that, I think it's very interesting. For me, as a huge Subnautica fan, and I will still enjoy Subnautica, and I will play Subnautica 2 once it comes out, and I love Subnautica. It's one of the best games of all time. I found it very interesting to see where it came from. When you play all these games that look like Minecraft, but you never play Minecraft, I think it does a disservice to you. You should try and dig to know where games come from. If you're in art, whether it's movies or literature or music or whatever, you should always go back to the source, to the root, to understand, and then you appreciate things better. Playing this game made me appreciate and understand Subnautica even more. Not necessarily the people who did Subnautica though, I will say that. And that's it. I have to give a rating to FarSky. Reminder, you cannot purchase FarSky on Steam, you can only find it for free on itch.io, but I think most people should, if you're interested in that and if you're just interested in Subnautica, should play it to know as a knowledge and maybe to promote the fact that it came from one guy who was ignored. Usually when you study history and you realize, oh, everybody remember this invention from that guy, but 1 year before, another guy from a tiny country had done it before him. You know, that kind of, everybody heard about that kind of fact. Well, that's what happened here, I would say, with Subnautica, because it's extremely similar in concept. 12 years ago, it would have been probably a B or B minus. Right now, nowadays, I would say it's a C plus, maybe. I mean, there's not much to it. So if you take all the pricing of the equation, I would actually give it a C, a 64. I won't remember this game except for the historical part. 64% maybe. I think that's fair. Yeah, let's do that. It's a bit arbitrary, but I'm going to give FarSky a 64%, a C. It's an okay game, not bad, but you can skip it. And you should totally play this game if you care about history and where games come from, because I think it's a good lesson in art, history, in influence and inspiration and sometimes sad stories. There you go, that's my review of FarSky.